Hello, my name is Tony Beers, and this is Movie Grades.
And just like the movies, we play out our last scene.
Hey everybody, Tony Beers here again, and this is another episode of Movie Grades. And in this episode of Movie Grades, we're going to be talking about The Amazing Spider-Man 2. This time I got my friend Jay here.
How you doing?
And I'm going to change things up a little bit, you know. Usually I have my categories. This time I'm going to keep it a little simple. We're just going to talk about the good and the bad. So we'll start off with good.
Okay.
And I'll say one of the better improvements over the last film, I feel, is that it has a lighter tone.
Mm-hmm.
That the first one was kind of dark and depressing, a little bit Man of Steel-like, and or some people might say Dark Knight. And this one is a lot lighter, up until the end. You know, when what happens. I'll just go ahead and say spoiler alert because I want to talk about what happens at the end. So
actually, it's not a spoiler if anybody's familiar with the comic itself.
Right, exactly.
But,
you know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So what would you agree with about the tone?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit more fun, like a fun tone. Like he was having fun in this one, being Spider-Man. I think in the first one, like you said, it was a little bit more darker.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has come to his own feeling the Spider-Man powers. You know, it's like, I don't know. I'm kind of referring to the Tobey Maguire movies like it's a curse or something. But he's out there busting the bad guys and he's having fun with it. You know, like he's doing the wisecracks like Spider-Man did, which I did like.
Oh yeah.
And being you were talking, the first scene is totally awesome.
Second scene.
Second scene. I meant, whatever. The one where he's chasing them down.
Chasing down the Rhino.
The Rhino.
I'll say this right now, and I've told you earlier, but I'll tell the audience that is my favorite scene in the movie, even though it kind of goes. I'll talk about it later, but and then my next thing on my list for good is that it's visually, it's brighter, the colors pop more.
Yeah.
Was
the suit a little different? Because I thought it was.
Yes, good point. That's one of my other things that I think is good. This suit is a lot different. It looks a lot more comic accurate.
Yeah, I thought it looked more like the comic version of Spider-Man's suit.
Definitely.
The white eyes and more. I don't know. I agree with you. The colors were more like the Spider-Man suit in the comics.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Like I said, the visual style is better, and that's a lot to do with also that majority of this movie takes place during the day. I mean, the first Amazing Spider-Man is like all at night, and so I like that this takes place during the daytime.
Did you watch it in 3D?
No,
okay.
That's why I meant. I saw it in 2D.
I was gonna say I seen it in 3D, and I know you probably seen they had the same scenes obviously in 2D.
Right.
The web slinging scenes.
Yeah.
I loved them because it's his vantage point. You're looking at what he's looking at, and in 3D they were awesome. He's just like, I mean, I love that. That was really cool how they did that.
Yeah. I mean, that brings me to another point. That the seeing Spider-Man swing around, do his thing, is excellent in this movie. I mean, it was excellent in the last one too.
Yeah.
But this is they bring up the good part about it. The CGI is a lot better in this. Would you agree?
I definitely agree. I think the first one, you could tell a little bit here and there. They were trying to work the bugs out. This one, I think they did. I think, like that scene we were just talking about with him catching before he's the Rhino.
Right.
That stuff was really cool. It looked real. It looked very real.
Yeah.
And I think they did a good job on all the CG in this movie.
And going back to the first one, I mean, I don't know if you agree with me, but the lizard I felt looked terrible in the first one. I thought the CG was
Yeah,
bad.
I can see your point on that. I think they could have done a better job with the lizard.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
but again, I mean, they were probably working the bugs out, and who knows? They probably like, hey, you got to get it out. We need a Spider-Man movie. You know.
Right.
So,
It
I mean,
was-
that's-
they rushed it out. There's a scene in the first Amazing Spider-Man, which I like. My favorite scene in that movie, and if anyone hasn't heard yet, I hated that movie. And you liked it. We'll get
I
that-
thought it was good.
we got that clear for
Yeah.
now, but
I didn't love it. I liked it. I
Okay.
didn't love it. Let's categorize that.
okay,
It's not on the plane as Captain America.
all right,
It's not on the plane as Thor: Dark World.
Oh,
Pacific
yeah.
Rim.
yeah,
It's not along those lines. But I mean, if I was gonna give the first Amazing Spider-Man a grade, I would probably give it. I'd say probably a B minus C plus range.
okay,
I mean, I thought it was personally my opinion was I liked it better than the other ones with Tobey Maguire because I
Mhm.
thought they were more in tune with the comic story.
all right,
But me being a Spider-Man nut as I am, that was why I'd say it's a little biased maybe,
Mhm.
but I mean I knew you didn't care for it because you told me numerous
Yeah.
times. So we kind of
Yes.
had a little discussion about it.
But my favorite scene in that first one is where he's he's saving all those people on the bridge. You know, lizards throwing the cars off and
Mhm.
stuff, and he saves that little kid.
Oh yeah, that was a good
He
scene.
takes so the kid's not scared. He takes the mask off and
It gives
he
it to him.
gives the kid the mask. That was my favorite scene in the Amazing Spider-Man, and they have a similar scene. Well, two similar scenes to that in this one, and the first one is he saves this kid from a bunch of bullies, and
That was a cool scene.
he has some kind of science project or something. He's like, "Oh, you made this? This is so awesome," you know. And that's a really touching scene. I really liked that.
Yeah.
And it's not my favorite scene, but it shows you that he is a hero. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that he's trying to do the right
helping-
thing, helping these kids
Well,
out.
that comes back later though.
Yeah.
That same kid later on.
Was
I'm
that
not gonna
the
give-
same kid
That was the
as
same
him?
kid that
I
that
wasn't
was
sure
in-
about that.
Yeah, that was him. Remember?
Yeah.
Because his mom's like,
Okay, but that we'll get to that. I really liked that they showed that. Okay, my last thing in here for the good of it, and then we'll
very
move on.
short as you could say.
Yes, and we'll move on to the bad. Is Aunt May? I thought she was a lot better in this one. I mean, the first one they didn't give her much to
They
do,
do. You're right.
and this one since she's Peter's only family member, I guess you could say, or a guardian, that they give her a lot more to do. She's more involved in her character, and you can really see a relationship between her and Peter in this one.
I wouldn't get on with that. The scene with her and him was very touching. Like,
hmm
she was like, hey, you're my boy.
Yeah,
That's basically what she said.
you're my
you're,
son.
You're
now.
my son now.
Yeah.
And I mean, I thought that was a great scene in the movie, too.
Yeah.
So,
Now we get on to what I didn't like about it.
here comes the monsoon.
Okay, now back to the scene where it's my favorite scene of where he's fighting the Rhino or pre-Rhino, we'll say, in the beginning. I love the scene all the way, most of it, but the one part I hated is he gets a call from Gwen Stacy on his cell phone, and I see what they're going for. It's a little bit of comedy, and they're showing that he has to struggle with being Spider-Man and Peter Parker. I get what they're going for, but that made him seem very reckless to me. Like, why does he even have his cell phone on when he's fighting these supervillains?
That's a good point, but as you said, Aunt May could call him. Something could happen to her. I mean, I can kind of see your point. I'm kind of on the fence on that one. I mean, I could see your point, but you can also see the other side of it is, okay, like, what if Aunt May needed him? You know what I mean?
I get
I
what
mean,
you're saying.
I'm not saying that that's what they were thinking. I'm saying that's plausible.
Right.
That's why he had the phone.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah.
I wish I knew what was in the writer's mind when they put that in there, or the producer.
But yeah, I was thinking, okay, you're busy fighting a superhero villain. You're trying to save people. It's time to cut the cell phone off and get what you gotta do done. And then
And the funny part is, you remember the ringtone?
Yeah.
That was the ringtone.
Yeah, I thought that was funny, but it's funny, but it doesn't really make sense. Like, who made up that song? You know, it's Spider-Man theme song, but in this world where he's well. They had it again in the Raimi films. They had that Asian woman with plucking the violin or whatever. So
She was doing the '60s version of it.
So it's kind of this.
Yeah, I got another
same
point
thing.
to what you were saying in the first one.
Okay.
Okay, let's go back to Amazing Spider-Man. Was he not wanted by the police as a vigilante? Because Gwen
Yeah.
Stacy's dad was after him, right?
Yeah.
Did you see the cops go after him at all in this one?
No.
Not one time. Matter of fact, they were smiling when he was around. Was I right?
Yeah. I didn't think about that. That's a good point.
When did the opinion change of Spider-Man? Did they not? They could have put it in the Daily Bugle. You didn't see that anywhere. And I think that's another thing that's missing from this movie is J. Jonah Jameson.
That's what I was telling. I was saying to our friend Robin before we started this review.
J. Jonah Jameson, I hate to say it, the guy that played him in the other movies was awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I hope they bring him back for these.
Yeah.
I mean, because they need the Joe Jonah Jameson thing in these movies.
Exactly.
Because that's part of the Peter Parker thing.
Right.
Is him having to do that, come take a picture, taking pictures of the Menace Spider-Man, you know,
Yeah.
and it just, that adds to the movie, to me.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but that's how I feel. I think that was lacking in this movie.
Oh,
It was lacking in
definitely.
the first one.
Yes.
And I think that when they have another one, because there's going to be another one, because it has
Oh yeah.
buku bucks already,
Right.
that they need to put that character in there.
Definitely.
They need to put J. Jonah Jameson in. Him getting a job at the Daily Bugle. I almost said Daily Planet. Daily Bugle. And, you know, they need to add that element in there. I think that would help with some of the, like with the story. Because, I don't know. Like I told you, I thought it was better in the first one, but I'm kind of like you. It's got its good points. It's got its bad points, just like the other one did.
All right.
So, but I think, I do, like I said, I think Andrew Garfield's a better Peter Parker than Tobey Maguire. You might disagree with me,
with you on that.
but I just think he's got it better. I think his demeanor's better. I think he's got it better. He does a better job of it. And I explained to you about him in his room doing the stuff with the webbing.
Right.
That's what Peter Parker did in the comic book. You didn't see Tobey Maguire doing that stuff. I mean,
Right.
it just... I love Spider-Man. I read the comics. I love the character. And I like to see those elements of that on the screen. Because that, to me, is like, oh, yeah, I remember him doing stuff like that, in the
Exactly.
comic books.
Exactly, yeah.
And that was the big thing for me as far as that. I mean... But go ahead, go on with your long list of bad things here.
Well, I'm glad you brought up J. Jonah Jameson. This is the second movie, and no Jonah Jameson. I can't even say
J.
his
Jonah
name. J.
Jameson.
Jonah Jameson. And it's like, they mention him. They show him sending him an email. They mention the Bugle. They show his pictures in the Bugle. But we don't see the people of the Bugle. We don't see J. Jonah Jameson. And I think that's a
And you
big,
figure in 2.5 hours, they could have had him in there.
Yeah.
I mean,
they could have cut
it's a
something
long
else
movie.
out. It
Yeah.
is.
It's a long movie.
That's one of the other downsides. It is a long movie. And going off of that Rhino scene, he at the end, he captures Rhino, and then he pantses him, which that's funny,
It was funny.
but I thought it was overkill. I mean,
Yeah.
he's caught him. He's in the web. Does he really need to pants him? It seemed like a jerky thing to do.
But then again, if
there's-
you read the Spider-Man comics, he did stuff like that. That was because he was a shy guy
Right.
normally,
yeah.
and that's his way of letting himself out. He did stuff like that all the time. I used to laugh at all the stuff he used to do, like, Doc Ock and stuff,
I agree with you. He does funny things like that, but I felt at this point where he's already tied up, he ain't gonna go anywhere. It was really no point in doing it. It was just a cheap laugh.
Yeah.
But,
Well, for the kids, too. I think that was more... Because my daughter was laughing.
She was laughing.
Oh, she thought it was funny. And I think that's probably why they put it in there. For me and you, it's a cheap laugh, but other people, the little kids are like, look, he's got his underwear, And that's funny to the kids,
Right.
So
I can see why, I understand why they did it. I just thought it was kind of like a little bit of an out of character thing to do. Toxic Pop has a new Facebook page. Like it to see pictures and keep informed about our upcoming events and videos. A link is in the description. Go to www.facebook.com/toxicpop1.